This story I love because it's really a bunch of different stories. It's a story about the absurd lies of the 2020 election that are still being told by many right-wing media networks. It's also a story about really the futility of the types of corrections that we only ever get. So what am I talking about? Let me explain it to you. There's a right-wing network, OAN. So the way I kind of place them on a spectrum of wacky is you've got Fox News, which is slightly crazier than the Republican Party. You've then got Newsmax, which is crazier than Fox News. And then you've got OAN, which is in a category kind of not really of its own, but it's in a very extreme category along with Real America's Voice and those types of channels. And for months, and really, quite frankly, at this point, it's almost years after the 2020 election, OAN was parroting and repeating all sorts of lies about the 2020 election, hosting the most unhinged guests to comment on the 2020 election. They have now been forced to settle a defamation suit, and they issued a sort of retraction on air, but it was only 36 seconds long. And we're going to look at it. The Daily Beast reporting OAN finally admits no widespread voter fraud after settling defamation suit. Georgia election workers were dragged through the mud on OAN by right-wing conspiracy theorists like Rudy Giuliani. Now the network is finally acknowledging there was no fraud. So let's take a look at this clip.
We now provide you with this updated report from Georgia officials. Take a listen.
Georgia officials have concluded that there was no widespread voter fraud by election workers who counted ballots at the State Farm Arena in
But that's not what you told us for a year and a half.
November 2020. The results of this investigation indicate that Ruby Freeman and Wandrea Shea Moss did not engage in ballot fraud or criminal misconduct while working at State Farm Arena on election night. A legal matter with this network and the two election workers has been resolved to the mutual satisfaction of the parties through a fair and reasonable settlement.
So there's been a settlement. Understand that that's what they're saying. And clearly this report is part of that settlement. Now, will they go right back to immediately spreading lies? Because as often is the case, when you have such a big lie that you're telling, and the big lie that they're telling is Biden stole the whole thing. It was Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona. They did dumps in the middle of the night, all this different stuff. The issue here is just about the two individuals named, Freeman and the other person. So they're kind of like correcting one tiny little slice of the story, and then they can just go right back to fomenting all of the same lies. And the settlement should really be, you have to mention this 10 times a day for a year in prime time. And this gets to the issue of corrections and why I make every effort on this show to be accurate. And then when I get something wrong, I will start the next show with it. I do everything I can not to bury the correction because nobody sees the correction, right? 36 seconds, 12 of which sort of really relate to the settlement. After a year and a half of spreading this stuff, it's just not enough. It's kind of like punching someone in the face for 3 weeks in a row. And then on the last day, you quietly say, I'm sorry. And then you walk away and then we're supposed to believe that they've been made whole. And that's essentially what this is. The damage has probably been done irreversibly in the sense that I don't know what the numbers now are. It's probably around 20 to 30% of America that believes the 2020 election was stolen by Joe Biden and actually won by Donald Trump. This correction on OAN isn't going to trickle down to the cult members. The settlement, it almost should be like a permanent banner that scrolls the screen and says, we lied about 2020. Biden actually won. But even the settlement isn't related to that. It's only, think about how narrow the settlement is. It's the two individuals we named weren't involved in funny business in Georgia in 2020. And really, this is a network that is extraordinarily dangerous. And the good news is they seem to kind of be dead in the water. I don't even know that anybody's watching OAN. You might remember famously a couple months ago, AT&T and a couple of other cable carriers said they're going to be dropping OAN. And Trump went nuts and all these people went nuts. But the hope is that OAN ends up shutting down, not because some regulator forces them to, but because everybody stops watching. That's my desire. And we'll see if that happens. We'll have their, quote, correction up on our Instagram, which you can find at David Pakman Show. We'll take a quick break and be back right after this. One of our sponsors is called Privacy. Privacy is a totally free service that I've been using for years. Privacy lets me create virtual payment cards with one click, and when I use the virtual card, the money is taken out of my bank account. You can create multiple cards, delete them, freeze them, set a spending limit on them. Let's say I'm signing up for a free trial and it requires a credit card. Privacy will autofill a virtual card number, and then after signing up, I can delete that virtual card. So I know I'm not going to be charged again. Something really useful and very practical. Or let's say I'm ordering food over the phone, but I left my wallet somewhere. I don't have my real credit card on me. I can use a virtual card on my Privacy mobile app. But really the best part is you're not out there exposing your real credit card number, so you're not as susceptible to data breaches and identity theft. Privacy is a totally free service, and you'll get $5 to spend when you go to privacy.com/Pakman. The link is right underneath this video.